Hi everybody. Thanks for coming over. Just waiting for Sam to come on Instagram and I will invite him.
Hey.
Hello! Hey, nice to see you. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Nice to see you.
You too.
All right. I can't wait to get into it, but yeah. So also Lori told me a story. I don't know if you listened to our interview a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
great.
she botched the story up pretty bad.
Okay, awesome. So you get a chance to to counter her story. Hi, Queena. Welcome. Yes, this is such an important topic. I also was meeting with Lori because we're interviewing, for these podcasts, the Hero Makers podcast together.
Yeah.
So we met this morning as well. And then she was just asking me if I had watched the presidential debates last night. And I'm like, I was teaching and then on the road. But I'm also Canadian, so I don't know. What do you think? Should I watch them?
No.
Okay.
Makes me want to move to Canada.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The border is closed, as you know, because of COVID. And I don't know if anybody from the government is watching this, but I actually wonder if they're keeping it closed because of the elections that are coming up too. So
probably. A lot of us might be tempted.
Quietly, just yeah, because of COVID, we're just going to keep the border closed. Hi, Ivan and Jean. Awesome. Jeannie, nice to see you guys. Welcome. So yeah, let's get started. It's 2:00 and Instagram just closes after an hour. So I want to make sure that we have all the time possible. Also, because of Lori, she gets a little shout out. Last time when we did the interview, my anecdotes live sign was backwards. So hopefully it's better. Hey, Ivan. Awesome to see you. We should have a reunion. Ivan and I worked on Urbana 15 together. He was on the worship team. That was awesome. He's an amazing drummer. So good. All right. Anyway, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is my awesome friend, Sam. And we met, was it 2 to 3 years ago? Let's see.
I think we met briefly at Cape Town in 2000.
Ooh. Yeah. 10 years ago. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That was
beautiful,
awesome.
Beautiful place.
Incredibly beautiful. I went out to Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was in prison. Did you go too?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you have to go. Like you're that close, you have to go in order to understand the context of where you're at. So
I know, seriously. It was an amazing time. I just can't even put into words how beautiful Cape Town is, South Africa is. Just the Caribbean and the European influences and the mountains and the water. It's just it looks like another planet, right? Yeah. Amazing.
Also the Dutch influence. I basically showed up because I've been to I went to Nigeria first as my first African country. And then I wondered where I was because I'm like, what? South Africa is totally different. And then I went to Kenya after that and I'm like, oh, again, just completely different. Wow. Yeah, we actually went whale watching too. So yeah, it was good. So let's see, do you want to introduce yourself or I would love for you to introduce yourself to everybody. And then
sure. I'm Sam. I'm a Yale-Hastings Scholar now, but I've done research at Harvard Medical School, Center of Bioethics, researched physician burnout along with clergy, ecumenical clergy, and also did some research in mental health and loneliness, particularly around those areas. Yeah, and I'm a pastor in Manhattan as
All
well
right.
for the last decade. Yeah, so
You do everything.
not really.
What don't you do? I think it's so important what you're doing because obviously, especially because of COVID with the burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I want to ask, I'll ask later, but
Yeah.
I also just wanted to start off by actually for you to clarify your church story that Lori told.
Mm-hmm.
So the story goes, for those who you didn't listen to Lori in my interview a couple of weeks ago, is that Sam is pastoring and co-founding a church in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And then you asked everybody to sell their phones to make rent?
No, that's not how the story goes. Lord botched it up. So in the beginning of our plan, it was 2009, renting a theater and renting office space in Manhattan was like astronomically high. Oh. And so we were, I think, a couple of thousand short, like $7,500 short.
Whoa.
So we sold,
excuse me.
We sold and upgraded 10 business lines of the new iPhone.
Oh, okay.
So we paid it in credit and then sold them, I believe, and raised 10,000. Sold it for 1,000 each for an international dealer. So we went into a van with a guy full of bags full of cash, and I think what it looked like to be a gun, but I wasn't sure. I was just kind of panicky. But we did raise $10,000, and we made rent.
Yeah, well, that's creative.
Yes, sometimes, like Lewis says in the Chronicles, God never works the same way twice. Sometimes he sends you a check in the mail, which we received. Sometimes you sell iPhones.
Oh, right. So you're saying you would probably not recommend doing that again, or?
No, I think if you study church planning, you do what you got to do, you know? I mean, you got to be innovative and disruptive.
That's right.
You know, like Apple was 1 quarter away from bankruptcy when Steve Jobs came back.
Right.
Now they're worth $2 trillion. Yeah,
not bad.
So it's all about timing.
It's helpful as well, yeah, to think outside the box.
Yeah.
You know. Mm-hmm. All right. Hey, welcome everybody. This is my friend Sam, and we're going to have this awesome conversation on this very interesting and really pertinent topic. Yeah, also going back to how we met like a couple of years ago, was it Amplify?
Yeah.
So the Billy Graham Center for Evangelism conference. And it was so good to meet you and hang out and get to know you better. Mm-hmm. And we like also connected on the Arrow leadership.
Right.
Thing. That was really awesome. So it was I really am honored to know you, and thanks for your time. We appreciate it. I'm sure you're super busy. Great. So let's see. I wanted to know, I guess, getting into the topic of loneliness, what got you started? Like, was there an issue or something that you're like, oh, okay, this is an issue I want to like dig into?
Well, I think that when the UK appointed a prime minister of loneliness a few years ago, 6 years ago, it caught my attention because a whole government appointed a minister of loneliness.
Wow.
And I looked into that, you know, and it was heartbreaking because what their research, qualitative research showed and quantitative research showed in the UK that some elderly haven't spoken to someone in 3-4 months.
Oh yeah.
And then they did studies, it's detrimental to their health.
Wow.
And so when I heard that, it was really grabbed my interest and piqued my interest, and that's when I began to really study more, explore more about it. And then, wow, I mean, it's a pandemic, actually, because it's international. It happens everywhere.
Wow.
And because it's embedded in the human spirit, we
Mm-hmm.
are made for relationship.
Mm-hmm.
At Daryl Johnson, Regent College, you probably took him there, right?
I did.
Daryl says in his book Trinity, at the center of the universe is a relationship.
Right.
This fellowship in holy fellowship and community of love, perpetually overflowing with love, is at the center of every molecule, at the central place of everything that is created.
Wow.
So I mean, what defines the quality of relationships, the quality of life in someone's life? I mean, how do you quantify happiness? And it's your relationships, right? It's not success, external success. It's not names, not status. It's the quality of my relationships. Because compared to relationships, everything else is trivial.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it totally makes your life worth living. And that is huge, because you want people to thrive.
Yeah.
You know, not just exist. And there's a difference there. Like, I love what you said about our understanding of God. Because if God is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity, God was created in community with himself. Mm-hmm. And then if we are created in the image of God, then we are also created for community. And that's so innate. And I think that that's actually fairly undeniable if people think about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's the preeminence of God is intricately linked to the human spirit, because we're created out ex nihilo. We came from nothing, but we came from him.
Yeah.
And that's why are people lonely? Why are people depressed? Because God is more than one. It's a mathematical equation. And the Trinity, to me, made a lot of sense to me as someone struggling with faith, because if there had to be a religion that made sense, some people made the Trinity like a three-headed monster. Ooh. But mathematically, what is created in the universe or expressed that's not independent in a relationship? There's nothing that can exist in a vacuum, because God himself is a relationship. And that preeminence of God is linked and embedded in everything that we are, and in the universe itself.
It's like our essence.
Yeah.
Regardless of what we think about how we are created or who we are, we have to admit that we are made to be in community. We can't do it alone. No way. Absolutely no way. Do you think that loneliness and disconnectedness is more of an issue in individualistic societies and cultures?
Yes, I think it's exaggerated as urbanization begins to take a hold of the global trajectory. I believe culture was less lonely before the advent of social, before globalization, probably. But I think it was an issue for centuries. I think that emptiness and that longing for something greater, even if you're in a relationship, because in New York, we have 23 million people in the metro area. You got to be a sardine in the subway. And in COVID, that's crazy to think that we live that way. I mean, the crazy thing about New York is that it ran 24 hours. Right? So they never cleaned it. So imagine that. They're cleaning it now. We're like, what? You guys never cleaned it before? We're like, we didn't have time. It's like, whoa! And it's a miracle that we didn't get COVID like 2 decades ago. And
you guys are a petri dish of awesomeness.
But think about that. You're surrounded and swarmed by people, left to right. You can't. Ambulances and sirens are going off every day.
Right.
Yet you feel your loneliness is compounded. Why is that? You're surrounded by people. You're surrounded by communities, even.
Right.
Because there's something in the human heart that wants connection, not just proximity.
Okay, so then in your research, do you say how we got here? Like, how, honestly, I think there are obstacles that prevent us from being intimate with each other or vulnerable. So yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the confluence of urbanization again with globalization has curated a city urbanization that creates a boom in the economy and culture, but it decreases intimacy
Mm.
because there's so many people, you don't feel seen or heard. And it's very difficult to enter relationships because also cities are transient, you know, and jobs primarily sort of drive people's trajectory of where they're going to live.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result of those things, we come to, so it's a microcosm, you know, urbanization is a microcosm of the best and worst of humanity, right? And it's amplified in both ways.
Yeah, and I think economically, if we are, you know, just booming, then we're going to see another human being as somebody to use. You know what I mean? Like a commodification of the person,
Right.
and not the whole person and caring for the whole person. I'm going to see you as what you can give me, you know, so how can I benefit almost economically from our interaction? So,
Well, that's what Facebook and Google are doing,
oh,
right?
yeah,
We are the product. They sell the product. They're selling our information to make money, right? And so it's very profitable businesses to do that. So the trend is, you know, information now is the commodity of the future. It is the new currency.
wow.
And so everything is a transaction. Like everything that we're talking about online, even now, is
Right.
being recorded.
Yeah.
And broken down into patterns.
Interesting. Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, gotta go. Bye. It's been real. Thanks, Instagram. So then, yeah, I heard a comment. What was it? Something like Spotify that you have to like buy and purchase, you know, an account in order to have no commercials.
Yeah.
Commercial free. But if you are super cheap like me, you know, don't have the money, but you still want the music, you can go and listen to the free version of Spotify. But then I heard a quote that if you are that person that does not buy Spotify's commercial free account, you are the product.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But you are the product regardless if you pay or not, because they're going to take your data and break it down regardless, and your choices, your preferences, and they're going to cater and they're going to recommend toward that.
Right.
I mean, it's the only way they can make money. I mean, Sheryl Sandberg and Zuckerberg sort of figured it out when Facebook was at $14 a share, and now it's $2.50.
Whoa.
They learned to sell the product, and we are the product. I think it's like $21 per person is what it comes down to.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, is there another way? Is there a better way?
Yes, it's the Jesus way.
Okay. Keep going. Keep talking.
It's the Jesus way. I mean, if you read my piece at CT, which you write these things and you're like, is anyone going to say something? You know that line from You Got Mail? You write these things and you wonder if anyone's going to talk about it. But for this particular piece, I got like 8,000 calls.
Whoa.
And, yeah. And Harvard Medical School picked it up and shared it.
Whoa.
Many other places picked it up and shared it because it was like an answer to a question we're asking. And
yeah.
Apparently I answered some questions that they thought were thoughtful. And my answer was simple. My answer was, we have to go back to simplicity before the advent of social.
Okay.
And we have to go back to biblical hospitality.
Ooh, yes. Okay.
We have to go back home.
Wow.
Nostalgia. We have to go back to our mom's kitchen, where our brothers and sisters, and be. Mm-hmm. We have to like in Ratatouille, the critic who eats the ratatouille dish,
yes,
is transported back
to his childhood. Oh, that was really a lovely moment, right?
Yeah, and that's what we're missing. So the church is caught up in, and businesses are caught up in trying to sell in trendy, advertisements and smoke machines and all kinds of complicated marketing strategies. Mm-hmm. When the real way to win someone's soul is you need to reach it, and you need to mm-hmm. be able to enter the soul conversation so that you can actually have soul care.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's yeah.
So my whole point of the piece was, this is a historic gospel opportunity for the church.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Historic.
Okay. Like this is revolutionary, obviously.
Yes.
Because if we actually, so obviously getting rid of the superficial and getting like paring it straight down to what is actually essential, meaning our relationship with God and with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree. I love it. I mean, I've been really on the path of understanding what hospitality is like for years, and it just I could um, I could get pretty emotional about it. But I've read Henry Nouwen, who's an amazing Catholic author. Oh, you like him too.
Oh
We've
yeah.
talked about this when talking about reaching out, the three movements of the spiritual life. When we reach the movement of like reaching out is that hospitality, is that piece of hospitality. But we actually go, he says we go from the path of hostility towards hospitality. And that we all start with a position of hostility. You know what I mean? Like we're all skeptical, we've been burnt. So how would you recommend that, like if we're actually going to go back down to the basics, how would you recommend that we go from hostility to hospitality?
Well, there is really no way except to do that, except to revisit the way of junior high.
Oh, okay.
Because think about a junior high school dance.
Oh no. Do we have to? Oh
Yes.
no, so much awkwardness.
Think about a junior high school dance. Think about what is it like to be in kindergarten, elementary school. That part of the human spirit never changes. Yeah. Do you like me?
Oh.
Will you be my friend?
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Like, if you go back to the way of junior high, there is no way to build community apart from awkwardness.
Oh, wow.
Because awkwardness is the embedded part of humanity that makes us human. Because if it's not personal and we didn't care what other people thought and felt about us or saw us, then it wouldn't matter if we're in a relationship.
Oh, no.
And that's why people have so many issues building authentic communities in churches. Because you think that what people really want is something trendy, something hip, something cool,
right.
Leather jackets and smoke machines, and you spend all this money on TV production. No, in the end of the day, every single person is looking to feel at home.
Right, like they belong.
Yeah, they belong, and sometimes you have to belong before you believe.
Yeah, totally.
And
you have to like feel it before you, make that leap, I think, of faith. But also you need to like touch it and feel it and hear it and like, like sense it before you fully make that leap. Oh yeah. So anyway, thanks guys for listening. I really appreciate people's comments. Please continue the comments and ask your questions too of Sam. This is an amazing opportunity to ask somebody who's really done a lot of research and thought on this. So Momi stuff, she's like, awkward is better than nothing, which is hilarious because that's my quote that they keep quoting about me that I said at my church. We were talking about hospitality at my church and I said, well, awkward is better than nothing, and it kind of stuck, so I'm all about awkwardness, but I think that we just want to look put together and glitzy and glamorous. Our pride, I think, we just want to look good, which then really hampers us from being authentic, from being real.
Let me read you one of my favorite quotes from a short story. Essay from Stephen King. Yes, Stephen King.
No way. Okay.
A lot of people think Stephen King only writes horror. But he's written this short story, this little short phrase that I think is the most powerful unpacking of community that I've ever read. And this is what he says. The most important things are the hardest to say. But it's more than that, isn't it? And you may make revelations that cost you dearly only to have people look at you in a funny way, not understanding what you said at all, or why you thought it was so important that you almost cried while you were saying it. That's the worst, I think. when the secret stays locked within, not for the want of a teller, but for want of an understanding you.
Can you unpack that?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? This is Stephen King.
Oh my gosh,
It's from different seasons, okay. And he writes a whole bunch of short stories. But what he's saying is the most important things are the hardest to say, because what if you said it in the age of transactional relationships, in the age of transactions?
Wow.
What if you said something so dear to you that you treasured with all your heart? Something that you couldn't even say because they're so precious, that you had tears in your eyes.
Right. Wow.
And someone got a notification on their phone and completely missed it.
Oh.
Someone didn't understand the treasure you were bringing about.
Yeah.
And that's why it stays locked within. And that's the question. Are people worthy?
Whoa, right.
Are people worthy to really know the sanctity, the imago Dei in me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people know that's a defense mechanism. People feel, and in Christian culture, I feel like that this is, there's a propensity toward a meticulous spirituality where there's not much room for ambiguity. And a lot of times it's very difficult to share the treasures of your soul.
Right.
Because people really are not paying attention.
Oh, man. So many things what you're saying is totally ringing bells off in my head of truth. So one of the truths that you just said is that I think you need to like earn it. I think you need to earn people's like, yeah. And that's in the daily interactions. Like, are you going to pay attention when I'm actually telling you something, or are you going to be on your phone? Right. And the other thing is to be present, to be listening, and like not just listening and nodding your head, but truly digging into the deeper aspect of what they're actually sharing.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the greatest failure of discipleship in the American church in North America.
Oh.
I think that I don't think we're building that capacity of the imago Dei. C.S. Lewis once said that you never meet a normal person.
Okay.
You never meet a normal person because the potential, the seed of God within them is so great that if you saw them in the future, you would be tempted to worship them.
Oh.
Because the imago Dei, the image of God, the prism of God's potential, seed, the imperishable seed, is beaming in them, and you would not realize that you're with someone that you want to even worship. Their qualities are so amazing that you might not. So there's this sense of the sanctity of everyone's soul, but somehow we became inoculated and numb to it because, honestly, we're being sold superficiality and transactions because they're easier. They're easier. And the whole idea of the Great Divorce. Have you read it?
Yes, I've read it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that's why C.S. Lewis's vision of heaven is heaven and hell as an allegory, is that people don't want to go to heaven that are superficial, that never build those qualities because it's too difficult for them. And so a part of us is that there's so much hesitancy to build community because of superficiality. And that's what Richard Foster says, right? That the curse of this age is superficiality. We don't need smarter people. We need deeper people.
Oh, yes. That's so true. And Queena says a normal person is an artificial construct. Right. I think that's being normal is being exactly what you think society needs you and wants you to be, but it's not authentic to who you truly are. Like, but obviously it's easier to wear a mask, you know, actually now during COVID, like a literal mask, but then otherwise just, we have masks, and then it's harder to take that off and reveal who you truly are. Yeah. Oh, so the book that he was quoting was The Great Divorce. C.S. Lewis, was it?
Yeah.
One of my favorites. And it's such an easy read and so profound. So profound. Yeah. I was also thinking about when you were talking about Vanier's book, Becoming Human. Because I think like what God's plan for us, like what we are to be doing on this earth, is to actually become more ourselves and more human, and to put away superficiality, to put away the masks, even though that's asking a lot, but then to be truly ourselves and become who God has intended us to be, more and more beautiful and more whole, as we go. And I love that concept as well. And I think that's also what's happening in The Great Divorce.
Yeah.
As well as C.S. Lewis's Till We Have Faces, that book, that story.
Yeah. David Brooks wrote a new book called The Quest for the Moral Life. He's an op columnist for the New York Times. Leighton Ford actually just shared it on his site. And he in The Quest for the Moral Life, it's about the second mountain. He says the first mountain is the mountain of success and fame and glory. The second mountain is the internal life, the mountain of love and relationships.
All right.
And he says that everyone in life, as the older you get, believe that life is about climbing the first mountain.
Right.
But then he says, for whoever, whether you go to the top of the mountain or you fall off, you learn later on in life, like he did, like through his divorce and through many painful things in his life, that success means nothing.
Whoa.
And it says that if you are detached in your life, the more successful you become, the more detached you become.
Oh.
Right? You're talking on a stage, you're flying airplanes, you're not even there for your kids' parties. Like, you become poorer in the first mountain. And you begin to realize that life is not about the first mountain. It's about the descent of being part of the second mountain.
Oh, man.
Quest for the moral life. And then you begin to learn that the more detached you are, the more isolated you are, the poorer you are, no matter how rich you are.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. So I think that society is moving to this realization rather quickly because of social. And there is a historic opportunity for believers to really get back to the simplicity of the gospel, which is to love one another, to care for one another, to build relationships with one another.
Wow.
To be genuine. Like, it sounds like the worst sales marketing tactic in the planet.
Yeah, a little bit counterproductive.
Yes, but that's what Google and Facebook can't do. They can't create something that's genuine.
True.
We can't.
So like what you're saying, like with the second mountain, it's more like in the first mountain, you're so successful, you've probably hired a lot of yes people and you have a lot of support and you're doing well on the outside, so superficially, but relationally you're poor.
Yes.
Which is what loneliness is. It's when you're relationally poor.
Or you can also look at it in a way where it's the cost of success, because when you climb the mountain, you have to sometimes forego intimacy and vulnerability.
Wow.
And so the tools that help you climb the first mountain necessarily can't help you in the second.
We always talked about at Regent College, where I did my master's in theology, was always question the definition of success.
Yes.
What is it? What is success? What is true success? Is it having all the toys and the money, or is it to have like an incredible inner life, as well as relationships and a wealth of relationships that go deep, where you can actually be yourself?
Yeah. I think it's a both and conversation. I think there's a confluence. Two streams could come together. I think that quantifiably $75,000 was like the minimum where you're not struggling financially, right? And they said that after 75,000, no matter how much you have won't help, right? So there is a baseline, because if you're constantly in survival mode,
true, yes,
yeah, you're gonna, that's the narrative you're gonna focus on. But I think you have to know when to cut your losses, right? Like, or when to get ahead. Yeah. I think that I think there is room for flourishing in an external sense to a certain extent. And I think it's all about degrees. But that inner life, it's way more important. I don't think anyone thinking, in the end of their life, like, man, I wish I got another doctorate degree, or I wish I had an honorary doctorate, or I wish I got the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think no one is thinking that.
Right.
People are thinking, man, I wish I spent more time with my kids. I wish I took my wife out more. I wish I spent more time with my friends. We're looking at faces of people. It's never places. It's faces of people with people. So I think that really helps us evaluate. Compared to relationships, everything else is trivial in many ways compared to it, even though other things are important as well.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying before, knowing at what point are you going to be content? Like, what is going to be enough? Are you always going to be chasing after the next thing? Because like you said as well, you do make choices, you do sacrifice in order to climb up the first mountain.
Yeah.
I was reading Philip Yancey's book recently too, and I heard him speak recently, and he said about pain. And I think what you were saying about this author, how he actually realized like what was truly important was after his divorce, and he actually suffered. So Yancey said, we always want to be without pain. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's also why we want to acquire, a certain amount of wealth and achievement so that we're reduce the pain or suffering in our lives. But anyway, he's like, there are places in the world that are without pain, but they're not great places.
No.
Because they're leprosy colonies. And he said, he talks about the gift of pain.
Yes.
How it's actually a gift to feel pain. For the people who have leprosy, they can't feel their extremities, and so then they hurt their hand, and they don't even know it because they can't feel, and then they start losing fingers. And so I'm like, whoa, the gift of pain.
Yeah.
Our bodies are trying to tell us stuff,
which also relates to spiritual leprosy.
Okay.
I think the first mountain gives you spiritual leprosy. You can't feel anything inside because you're holding it together.
Wow.
And therefore, you're detached from relationships, which makes you poor, which you only realize in the future.
Yeah, in retrospect.
In retrospect.
Right.
After your third divorce or something, or, your kids are grown up. And the truth is, life is unforgiving in many ways, because if you've missed 20 years or 5 years of your kid's life, someone's life,
huge. Yeah.
You can never get that time back.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the things, my themes about the church becoming a leading proponent catalyst to fight the loneliness epidemic is that's one commodity that none of us could get back: time. And so giving that time and actually fostering genuine relationships where life can be seen and celebrated is the greatest gift you can give anyone that knows Jesus or doesn't know Jesus. Yeah.
Well, I'm there with you. Time is my love language. So I'm there. I just want to say hi to those who have joined us, and welcome, and glad that you're here. Andrea and Monica, Liv, nice to see you guys. So Morgan actually has a question. So she's like, it's so cliche, but why does humanity continue to do that? And why don't we live real and authentic lives?
Well, because like we said, to be vulnerable is really what it means to love, to be loved and to love the other.
Right.
And that vulnerability is very difficult in a culture of, where we're all commodities to be sold. Whether it's living up to an image, living up to titles, and also the shoulds in your own head from your parents, from the world. You should be here at this age. You should have this at this age, these expectations. So it makes you hide. It makes you hide in your basement or within your own soul, and you hide.
Right.
And that's why it's difficult. I mean, who is worthy enough for you to be naked
Mm-hmm.
to bare your soul with? That's a very difficult question to answer at this point. And I think that's why it's so difficult to have authentic relationships.
Mm-hmm. Also, we've been burnt. I think that we've tried to be vulnerable with people, and we've been a little bit fried in that area. So we're a little bit, and I think that's okay to acknowledge, you know, that it takes a lot more effort to like extend yourself again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Andrea has a question. Any tips on extending Christian hospitality in a pandemic? Right. It is difficult to figure out what to do meaningfully in this time, which is totally true.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that preferably you rather meet up with people, but
Mm-hmm.
if you can sincerely talk to someone on the phone, I mean, before we had Zoom, right? Before there was Zoom, before there was the advent of social, for me to talk to a girl that as a friend or I like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to call them
Yeah.
at their house.
Yeah.
And usually their mom would pick up and they would question me about, hey, what's your SAT score? What are you going to do with your life? And then, you know, the girl would start like, you know, laughing and being embarrassed.
Yes.
You know, we have to go through these painful but beautiful
Right.
interconnections and relationships in the past.
Wow.
And somehow we've forgotten, because things are so convenient, that relationships about is intentionality.
Right.
People can feel your intentions. They're not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And they can feel sincerity when you call or when you text and say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I've been thinking about you.
Yeah. That's huge.
I've been thinking about you. I've been praying for you.
Yeah.
Can we talk? And I remember when I was young, we used to talk for hours about nothing and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the phone. And then my mom would start yelling, and sometimes she would take it off the hook. And, you know, we used to meet grandmothers and uncles and sisters, people, you know, making funny noises in their life. And we forgot that these are embedded parts of relationships. And that's why people even ghost friends or relationships now. They just ghost you because they're not entangled in real relationships.
Yeah.
Right? It's just digital. And it's easier to cut off that. And so, so how can you practice Christian hospitality? Whatever your intentions are, if they're poignant and they're sincere, and you give it to that person, they will feel it.
Wow.
And Holy Spirit will bless it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to up our game when it comes to communication.
Yeah.
And like reaching out and actually, like, even if it's silly, but calling them or texting them and or sending them flowers or giving them like a gift card for Uber Eats or something like that. Just like, hey, I see you. I'm thinking about you. I love you. Because some people really love gifts.
Yeah.
You know, some people love time. And so this is, you know, if you know your friends, you know what they like. And you're like, hey, I thought about you. I saw this really hilarious, like, you know, gift. It's coming over to you.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think that what it means to be human means that we are created for relationship, right? I mean, that's what a human is. Meaning making. We're embedded in a family. We're embedded in a culture. And it's not that we make meaning, we want to make meaning making. Being human is meaning making, you know? So that's how we make meaning, relationships, connections. And so if we forget that every single person, we're all the same deep down. And it's awkward.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing and it's vulnerable. And I think and that's okay. And like silences, you know, like you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Those awkward pauses are very, very powerful moments.
That's true.
We have to stop watching sitcoms with 1,000 writers and expect life to be that way.
Right. And maybe to embrace the silences and the awkwardness, because that's real.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
And it tells you that, man, I really care about this, what this person thinks of me, or I don't want to say anything stupid, or I mean, that's what's going on. That's the part of you that's really human, not the part that's performing or trying to be impressive. You
Yeah, I
know,
like
Don Miller in Scary Clothes, I would recommend that book highly.
Mm-hmm.
He said in a preface of a book that applause is a quick fix, but love is acquired taste.
Oh.
And I think that's true.
Oh, wow.
I think when you're in the first mountain, you think that to get love, you
Yeah.
have to sing or dance or something on a stage.
Right.
But it's easy to get praise for performance. But love is acquired taste. I didn't like sushi when I first tried it. Now I can't live without it.
Like, hello, Sam. Whoa, I think that's awesome. I love that, because with Donald Miller, because maybe we've lost our taste for true love. Like, maybe we don't even know what it tastes like. Maybe we don't know what it feels like, sounds like.
And I think that's why we have such a problem with evangelism.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sometimes we just are like short gains instead of the long haul. You know,
Yeah.
I think to have like a true relationship, showing people about our relationship with God, it's like evangelism is a longer process and more patient.
Yeah, we have a story in COVID
Mm-hmm.
where one of our healthcare workers has a friend who's a physician, and their relationship, him just being a friend along the journey, like Leighton Ford says a lot, and he's been there for her for almost 20 years, from high school to all the way to their mid-30s, right? And she gave her life to Christ
Oh.
during COVID,
Oh,
just like 3 months ago,
no way.
on a phone call.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes a lot of us are thinking that we want the quick fixes, right? Like we think that everything has to happen instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
But the real important things in life, the real powerful moments, take time. Like good home cooking,
Mm-hmm.
for microwave dinners.
Right.
And sometimes we forget that
Mm-hmm.
in a process transactional culture.
Mm-hmm.
That the awkwardness and the disappointments and the delays and the detours in relationships
Mm-hmm.
are all part of the biblical narrative. If you look at scripture, right? Abraham's delays, detours, Moses' delays, every Bible characters. And so we should remember in our discouragement sometimes in building relationships that, like John Ortberg says, everybody's normal until you get to know them.
Yeah. And then that's when it gets good. That's the good stuff.
That's when it's fun.
Now you have spice, and that's fantastic. Sam, thank you so much. I feel like we should wrap soon, but I did want to know, like, what does the future look like for you? Any projects that you're working on?
Yeah, so one of the projects that we're working on, I'm writing a book right now.
Oh, yes.
That's one. I'm writing a book called Spiritual Puberty.
Amazing. I can't wait.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I think, very powerful for seekers and people doubting their faith.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. And the other one is we're partnering up with the UN.
Okay.
In October, I'm not sure with COVID what's going on, but they asked us to write policy for Gen Z and how to take churches as leading determinants against mental health and loneliness and depression, and to create an actionable policy that could get faith communities on board to become that community of life.
Oh, man. Okay, can you give us like...
Thank you. Great title. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, all right. I mean, I think I am a little tired of like spiritual maturity. You know, you're like, no, spiritual puberty. I can't even say it.
Yeah, I mean, if Jesus compares salvation to maternity, right? You have to be born again, and puberty, you have to become like this child. And salvation is always going to be something of a mess.
Yes, it is messy.
And if it's not messy, it's not real.
Oh man, you're killing it.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, I had like a moment with John chapter 3 when Nicodemus goes up to Jesus at night. He's like, God, hey, are you God? Because mano a mano. I'm like, and then Jesus is like, I'm sorry, you need to be born again. And then I'm like, oh no, you mean it's about continual life transformation? Oh no. And that was but that started me on my own journey, like of just like taking a risk, being cold, naked, and vulnerable, but in the light of God.
Yeah.
Which is where I wanted to be. Like that's where we want to be. All right, Andrea likes the title. Okay, I think you're getting some winners here. That is awesome. And then where can we find you on social media?
Sammy D. Kim or samdkim.com.
Yeah, so good. Also, we will reference your Christianity Today article in the information on this interview, and definitely let us know about your book.
Sure.
When do you expect it to be out?
Still working on it, but probably next year, if anything.
Okay. Well, do you have top tips for like churches, maybe on how can we be a really awesome response to loneliness?
Yes. Everybody, again, I fear people might think my superpower is repetition. But there is no other way to build community except the junior high school way. That's the real way. That's the only way. It's the Jesus way.
Okay.
So if you really want to build community, it has to happen through biblical hospitality. And that happens when there's no agenda, especially in small groups. You have to get together, whether you have a curriculum or not. And they shouldn't be curriculum heavy. It's about creating a sacred space to meet together consistently, because there is no transformation without repetition. And there can be no relationship without repetition. I mean, what is a relationship? Repetition, right? What is a marriage? Going out to dinners, talking. It's about the rhythm of repetition. People think that they had a bad small group if, I feel like nothing happened. Most of life, nothing happens. And here's the key. You keep meeting until something does happen.
Whoa. And
then watch in that transition. Now, a proximity meets what? Intimacy. Now you can have soul conversations. Why? Because you were there from the beginning. And when that happens, that's when Christ is formed in us. And then you go, oh my God, this community is amazing.
Yeah.
Just like your podcast, right? Hero Makers podcast, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Superheroes or heroes, you don't need heroes unless there's a crisis.
Exactly.
And you don't need community unless you're going through what? The descent of the mountain. That's when you realize you need others.
That's right.
Or when you reach the top of the mountain. Actually, you can reach the bottom of the mountain. You reach the top of the mountain and you're detached.
Yeah.
You won't feel happy. You'll feel lonely.
Yeah.
Because life is not meant to be alone.
Right.
And did you ever watch Kevin Costner's really old movie, For the Love of the Game, with Kevin Costner?
I didn't.
Okay, well, people, you need to watch this movie. Well, Kevin Costner is this baseball player, and at 42, he's a pitcher that accomplishes a no-hitter.
Oh.
Which is an amazing thing in baseball.
Right.
But in the best day of his life, all he can do on his bed is cry.
Oh, man.
He just breaks down and says, this should be the best day of my life, but I have no one to share with.
Whoa, yeah.
So you can struggle and despair alone and feel the same thing you feel on the top of the mountain. And that's when you realize, man, I need other people around my life. And these names, status don't matter really. And so in those small groups, consistency and repetition is key. Because it's not what? It's not if, it's when.
Right.
The trials and temptations and the brokenness comes in my life.
Yeah.
It's when.
So all that time that you were just hanging out is you were just building a foundation.
Yeah.
You know? Also, I think in there would be expectancy, you know what I mean? To come with the expectancy of just showing up, and for people to just show up and just be themselves and hang out in all of your awkwardness, but hopefully beauty.
Yes, awkward beauty.
Awkward beauty. I like that.
Yeah, and what happens in the junior high school dance? Someone has to cross the aisle for the dance to start.
Yeah.
Just like that in church. Someone has to begin and fight through the awkwardness and be courageous. Mm-hmm. And the party will begin.
That is not happening. I'm sorry to say. We're so enamored by the glamour and the glitz and the choreography that, yeah, wow. I'm really excited. Thanks, Sam, for your research. Thanks for who you are. Thanks for your writing. Thanks for your speaking. You were totally encouraging to me personally when we were in Chicago together. I don't know if you know, but like that year was tough for me. Like I was going through the ringer. And then I had no idea why I was being invited to give a seminar that weekend. But every time I turned around, somebody was like encouraging the socks off of me.
That's right.
And you are one of those people.
Yeah. When asked about your topic, what was your topic again?
Actually finding your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember saying because we were on the committee for the emerging gen tracks at Wheaton, and I said, Ann Chow is the Michael Jordan of teams. She's led Cape Town. She's led Urbana.
Yeah.
She's had a helping hand in probably historic movements that the Holy Spirit has used to change everything. Urbana is responsible 50% of the missionaries overseas. Right.
Yep.
You did that with your superhero power, and you are the Michael Jordan of teams. If anyone's going to learn about finding their voice, about leadership, about how to get a team working in your sincerity, in your heart, in your love for God, my goodness. I mean.
Oh, thanks. There's no I in team.
There's no I in team. And there's the I in win, but that doesn't necessarily make you happy either. Look at Michael Jordan. He's not very happy. He's really good, but he's not happy.
Oh, man. Yeah, I will say, though, that I am the awkward me in the middle.
Yes, yes. We all are.
It has been quite a journey, though. Like, when you do take that leap and you do with Jesus and you do say yes and you are born again, meaning like thrust out of your comfortable spot into who knows what, naked, vulnerable, but in the light of God, that's when God's like, awesome, let's go. Hey, thanks, Lori. Hey, we were talking about you earlier, so you better watch this after. We have
not such good things. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, yeah, we said good things.
No.
Obviously.
Laura,
we have a minute left. So I wanted to say, join me in 2 weeks because our next guest is Rachel Tamupo from New Zealand, and she and I met about, well, let's see, when was the 500th anniversary of the Reformation? 3 years ago? 5 years ago? So we met in Wittenberg, Germany, with the leadership for the World Evangelical Alliance, and she is amazing. She is the South Pacific Regional Director for the World Evangelical Alliance Women's Commission. And wow. So she's going to be hanging out with me in a couple weeks, so I'm excited about that. Oh, Lori, we can't hear you, but thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, and if you saw the debate last night, and because you're going to have a woman on, I think we clearly saw the evidence needed that a woman should be running USA.
Boom. I like it. Well, we have 10 seconds left, but thank you so much, Sam. It was so nice to see you again. Virtual hugs. Really appreciate you. Peace.
Peace.
Love ya.